What's going on, everybody? I'm Gem Mint, and I was hoping that this new Ultimate Spider-Man would be a great jumping on point for getting back into comics, and this issue did not disappoint. Now, the solicits didn't give anything specific, so I'm going to go through this as non-spoiler as I can until we get to the point where there's just nothing else I can say. I'll give you fair warning, and then we'll jump into spoilers. So this is by Jonathan Hickman and Marco Checchetto, and it opens up and you're in this world where Peter Parker is married to Mary Jane and they have kids. That's not a spoiler. We've seen that from variant issues, and that's kind of what everybody was wondering, what was going on with this universe, that Peter Parker and Mary Jane have kids. So Peter Parker wakes up, he's got the family, Mary Jane is great, the kids are great. We don't really get much information on that. We just know that this is kind of an important day. There's something that he's got to do later on, and it's caused him to not sleep the night before, or at least that's what we're led to believe is the reason why he couldn't sleep. So Peter Parker, throughout this whole issue, in the first half, maybe 3/4, he feels like he's got this cloud over his head. Like, you kind of get the idea that something isn't right. You kind of are led to believe maybe it's because he's given up being Spider-Man and that is kind of bothering him and this and that. But we don't really get into that until the last act of this issue. There's a different dynamic with Peter Parker's supporting cast, right? We know he's married, we know he has kids, but again, we'll get into this in the spoilers, but there's a different character that he interacts with here who also works with him at the Daily Bugle. And of course, you got J. Jonah Jameson there as well. This Daily Bugle interaction is one of the highlights of this issue. I love the characters, which we won't spoil until later on, and what happens here. We end up going to the event that we knew that Peter had to go to later in the day, and it's a memorial. There's been some kind of attack, and it's claimed the life of somebody close to Peter Parker and many other people in the city. Now, the terrorist attack seems to be blamed on what we would know as a hero. So already you're like, wow, what's really going on here? There's no way this person would have caused this terrorist attack. Now, when Peter gets back to the Bugle, there was this board meeting here, and it looks like the investors want to get rid of J. Jonah Jameson because of the spicy headlines and material that he publishes, causing J. Jonah Jameson and some others to quit, a la Jerry Maguire. Who's coming with me? We're going to start our own paper, and the Kingpin is the one who's in charge of the Daily Bugle here. I don't know if that's so much of a spoiler or not, but a nice little tidbit for you to know. Peter Parker still works for the Daily Bugle, so that's going to be an interesting interaction. We also do get a Matt Murdock cameo as he is the one speaking the eulogy at this memorial. Peter seems to have a much better relationship with J. Jonah here. He even goes to check up on him at the bar that he's at. And again, a lot of this is because of the relationship between J. Jonah Jameson and that other person that we haven't mentioned yet. So Peter seemingly has a great life. He's got a great home life with Mary Jane and the kids. His work relationship seems nice. He's got a family member he works with. Him and J. Jonah seem good. But then when the kids go to sleep, he has that talk with Mary Jane. What's been bothering him all day, and what seems to have been for the last few months, he just feels like something is wrong. And Mary Jane basically says, listen, I support you no matter what. You supported me when I wanted to quit my job and start my own business. And as long as, things will never change between us, do whatever you got to do. So that's where we get into the final act of this issue. And I guess what I'm going to do is just give you the spoiler warning right here. If you guys don't want to get spoiled on Ultimate Spider-Man issue 1, stop this video right now. Come back to me after you've read the issue. I highly recommend this issue. The writing is great. I mean, it's Jonathan Hickman. We're in this new Spider-Man world where things have been shaken up a little bit here, different relationships, and it's all explained with this last act and this spoiler. So here we go, guys. Fair warning is up. So the character that I was alluding to in the beginning is Ben Parker. Ben works at the Daily Bugle, has a great relationship with Peter, a great relationship with J. Jonah Jameson, and you can kind of feel this sadness in the first arc of this issue, and you already kind of get the feeling that Aunt May has died. And she did. She was part of the catastrophe or the terrorist attack by Tony Stark, which claimed the lives of a bunch of citizens. So there was the memorial. Aunt May has died. Ben, being like typical old man, doesn't really want to talk about it or hasn't really talked about it much with Peter. But we do learn that Peter's parents died when Peter was a teenager, and he's been living with Aunt May and Uncle Ben this whole time. Uncle Ben asks Peter, is there ever a day that goes by where it doesn't hurt that your parents have died? And Peter says, of course, no. And then he says, well, that's how I feel about your Aunt May. So Aunt May has died in this universe. Peter Parker works at the Daily Bugle with his uncle and J. Jonah Jameson, but J. Jonah Jameson does not want to go along with this new management, with the Kingpin being the new owner of the Bugle, so he quits. Uncle Ben is kind of like his right-hand man, kind of like his Robbie Robertson, who's at the Bugle as well. He's actually the one that's going to be running the paper for the Kingpin. But Ben Parker decides to quit as well with J. Jonah Jameson. They talk about starting this new paper where they only tell the truth, and JJJ kind of laughs it off like, this is the news, man. The truth doesn't matter. It doesn't make news. And then they kind of come to this agreement. Okay, we just won't lie. So that's kind of their mission statement for their new paper. Now, Peter Parker, you don't see him turn into Spider-Man at all in this issue. You kind of get the feeling like I said before, like he hung it up. Maybe he was Spider-Man and maybe he gave up that life when he had kids, but that's not what's happened here. Now, the prologue to this issue, it tells you right away that 20 years ago, the Maker, the ultimate version of Reed Richards, prevented a radioactive spider from biting a young Peter Parker. He likewise prevented the creation of any other superheroes and formed a secret council to rule the world from the shadows. When Tony Stark learned this dark history of the universe, he sought to undo it, prompting the Maker's Council to attack Manhattan, killing thousands, and frame Stark for it. Peter Parker has lived his life unaware of the Maker's Council or the truth behind the spider, but that's all about to change. It tells us that before reading this issue, but I just didn't want to spoil it for you guys. But that's what Peter finds out when he has the talk with Mary Jane. He goes outside. He's got this device. It's a hologram message from Tony Stark, basically telling him the same thing, and that he was supposed to be a hero. He was supposed to inspire change. And it makes sense to Peter because he's felt this inside his soul, that something hasn't been right. He's just going through the motions of life, and he's not being all that he's supposed to be. So inside of that contraption, it has the message and it has the radioactive spider. Peter lets the spider bite him. And then the last scene is kind of like a Batman animated series on top of the building scene, where Peter Parker is now going to be Spider-Man, and other heroes are going to be tapped as well by Tony Stark so that they can be the heroes they're supposed to be and rise up against the Maker. What a hell of an issue, man. I'm in. I'm all in on the Ultimate Spider-Man stuff. I've been looking for a reason to jump back into comics, so it's definitely a great jumping on point. You don't really have to have read anything from the Ultimate Universe before. I know they mentioned the Maker, but that brief synopsis is all you really need to know. It's an evil Reed Richards. He's the Maker. He's the one that messed with the timeline, causing this world without heroes, framing Tony Stark for killing the citizens of Manhattan. And that's where we're at now, man. So I'm looking forward to it. They do have a scene with Harry Osborn. He was also speaking at the memorial, and there is also this ultimate Green Goblin out there. We don't know if it's Harry. We don't know if it's Norman. It seems like it's Harry. He kind of said something during the eulogy that was like, this is never going to be okay and I can't live with it type of thing. So that's what is the cover for issue 2. There are some other Ultimate books coming out too, man. Ultimate Black Panther, Ultimate X-Men 1. I'll try to keep up with these and bust out these reviews. Let me know what you thought about the issue if you read it. Let me know what you thought about the video if you didn't. And thanks for watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace. This video is brought to you by THATSPIDERMANBOOTH.com. It's a new year and it's a new month. They have their subscription box updated. So not only will you get those 5 comics, $100 of retail value for just $50, but that exclusive book that you normally only get in this box is going to be a Jim Lee variant for Essentia issue number 1, the John Dolmayan book, the founder of Torpedo Comics, the drummer for System of a Down. Now, it's not the only place you can get it, but it's a very hard to find variant, and you're going to be guaranteed one in this subscription box. Head on over to ThatSpiderManBooth.com and sign up for that subscription box today.